Moving ahead with the refund provisions, let us talk about Rule 96. Now basically Rule 96 was applicable with regard to refund of IGST when there is an export transaction. And it was very clearly talking about only export of goods transaction. Now the revised provision has been, the scope of this provision has been extended, and the revised provision says that this is not only going to cover goods transaction, but is also going to cover the services transaction. So whether I export goods or I export services, in both the cases I can think of applying for refund under Rule 96. So only a small change has been made, and that is the entire procedure which was mentioned with regard to export of goods now is also applicable for export of services. So basically Rule 96 का scope बढ़ा दिया गया है, extend हो चुका है. It says Rule 96 of CGST rule prescribing provisions for refund of IGST paid on goods exported out of India. So technically this was applicable only in relation to refund of IGST paid. So when I say we have two options to export goods, one is export can be done with payment of tax, another is export can be done without payment of tax. We are talking about export with payment of tax, in relation to which we have paid IGST at the time of export. Export of goods, and whatever IGST that we have paid at the time of export of goods will be refunded to us, for which all the procedural aspects were given in Rule 96. But as it is mentioned, it is purely in relation to export of goods outside India. So what about the export of services? So that is where this clarification has been brought, which says that apply the same rules to refund IGST paid on services which has been exported outside India. So when I talk about export of services also, then also the same provision is required to be followed, which is applicable in relation to export of goods. And as you can read over here, this Rule 96 has been amended retrospectively by providing effect from 23rd October 2017. So technically, जिस दिन से वो export of goods के लिए applicable है, उसी दिन से it should be also applicable in relation to export of services. So scope has been extended. Entire procedural aspect will remain same. Like when you are saying that you have to submit lot of documents for the purpose of refund, all these documents, all these procedural aspects are going to be same. The only difference is Rule 96, which was talking about export of goods, will now also cover export of services. So there is nothing else that we need to cover up under this category, except it was earlier applicable purely for goods. Now it is applicable for goods as well as services business. There is one more provision, and that is with regard to cross empowerment to the state tax officers. Now this is purely a logical provision. See, I believe everybody is aware that in GST, either your assessment will be done by the central government tax officers or will be done by the state government officers. One particular registered person will not be assessed by both the departments. Either he'll be assessed by central authorities or he'll be assessed by state authorities. Now let us put it this way, that if he will be assessed by central authorities in regard to a refund application, then obviously central government after due verification will grant the refund. But whether central government will grant the refund of only from CGST Act and IGST Act, or will also grant the refund from SGST Act. Similar manner, let us assume that one particular person is assessed by the state government officers. So whether state government officers will grant refund only under SGST Act or will also grant the refund of CGST and IGST Act. So that is where this particular provision has been granted, which says cross empowerment of state tax officers for processing and grant of refund. So when I say cross empowerment of the state tax officers, meaning thereby state tax officers are not only going to assess a particular transaction from SGST Act perspective, they are also going to assess the transaction from CGST and IGST Act perspective. And whenever they will grant a refund, so they'll pass an order granting the refund, that will not only be restricted to the SGST Act, but rather it will also become applicable in relation to CGST Act as well as IGST Act. So this is what we understand as one of the small change or one of the small clarification that has been brought at a later stage. Let us move ahead with this. There is a point which is with regard to commissioner's power. Now when I say commissioner's power, basically what is the provision with in relation to this? So a particular provision है, that is Rule 96(1). When I say Rule 96(1), it basically talks about the time limit within which the goods has to be exported, and if it is not getting exported within the stipulated timeline, the tax has to be paid with interest and penalty. we will discuss first that provision. Let us talk about the timeline. So it says that when goods which has been removed or which has been taken out of the premises with an intention that it will be exported, then it has to be actually exported within 3 months timeline. I think everybody understands that under an LUT or bond, we can take goods outside the factory premises without payment of GST. So let's say today we have taken it from our premises without payment of GST. Now technically when goods have been removed without payment of GST from the factory premises, it shall be exported within limited time period. Now that timeline is basically 3 months. When I say that timeline is basically 3 months, so what is an important part is, from today within 3 months it shall get exported. And that's the only reason that they have allowed us to remove goods without payment of tax. Now there are two possibilities. Within 3 months either the goods will be exported or it will not be. Let us say if goods are getting exported within 3 months, then there is no question. Because we have removed goods under an undertaking that goods will be exported within limited time period and it has been actually exported. So we have matched those timeline. Now let us talk about the second possibility. The second possibility is we have removed goods from the factory within the without payment of tax under an undertaking which says that within 3 months the goods will be exported, and now it is not getting exported. So if it is not getting exported, this is technically called default. Because आज goods factory से ये बोल के बाहर निकाले गए थे without tax के ये export होंगे, और अगर हुए ही नहीं तो that is where a particular provision says that consider 15 days timeline. So अगर मैं ये बोलूँ कि आज without tax बाहर निकले, so आज से 3 महीने के अंदर वो export हो जाने चाहिए. अगर हो गए तो ठीक है, अगर नहीं हुए ना तो the day on which the third month is getting completed, from that day within 15 days I have to pay the entire tax along with interest. If I do so, then I am complying with all the provisions, or otherwise I will be treated as a statutory defaulter in payment of tax, and department will definitely initiate the proceedings applying section 73 and section 74. Now the point is, a special power is given to commissioner to extend that 15 days timeline. वो जो 15 days का window दिया है ना आपको tax भरने के लिए, उसे commissioner चाहे तो extend कर सकता है. So now the revised provision says that if I remove goods from factory today with a clear point that within 3 months it will be exported. Now if it is not getting exported within 3 months, so how long period is available with me to pay tax along with interest? So prima facie it says 15 days, but it also says or any other further period extended by the commissioner. So now what will happen is, I am supposed to pay either within 15 days or within the extended timeline permitted by the commissioner. So that is where we talk about this particular change, which says commissioner empowered to extend the time period for payment of tax and interest under Rule 96(1) sub-rule A of CGST rules. So now commissioner can permit me a larger period also. It will not be limited to only 15 days timeline. So that is one of the change that we were supposed to cover up. Let us move ahead with few more changes. There is one point which is with regard to information. So information, I mean actually it is part of this only, that if at all the extended period is granted, then in extended period, when you pay tax along with interest, then the same has to be intimated in your GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. So that is the small change. That is not the separate point. Rather that is part of the main point only. Now let us talk about one more point, and that is with regard to LUT restrictions. Now basically we always say that export can be done with payment of tax and export can be done without payment of tax. Whenever we say we do with payment of tax, तो tax भर दिया और बाद में उसका refund भी ले सकते हैं हम लोग. I am not going into that particular picture, but I am talking about the other scenario where export can be done without payment of tax. Now when I say export can be done without payment of tax, so we always say that export बाद में होगा, सबसे पहले goods factory से बाहर निकलेंगे, and at that point of time what is the surety that goods will be exported? So अभी हमने discuss किया है कि that surety is always given by way of LUT or bond. So technically when LUT and when bond, that is what we are supposed to discuss. So law very clearly says that an option of LUT or bond is available with every person. Now original provisions उसके बहुत अलग थे, and the revised provision is a different one, or rather much simple or much easier one. जो original provision थे वो ये बोलते थे कि subject to certain restrictions LUT will be allowed. or in every other case the only option is bond. So prima facie जो LUT दिया जाता था वो कुछ ही लोगों को दिया जाता था जिसके लिए restrictions थे. क्या restrictions थे? तो कि you must be a status holder or you are not a status holder, but previous year में आपने जितनी amount के goods export किए उसके सामने 50% payment realize हो चुका है, which is at least 1 crore in terms of value. So या तो आप स्टेटस होल्डर में चले जाओ या आप दूसरा क्राइटेरिया सेटिस्फाई करो कि प्रीवियस ईयर के एक्सपोर्ट फिगर के सामने 50% फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रियलाइजेशन विच इज मिनिमम 1 करोड़. सो ये दोनों में से जहां पे भी आप फॉल हो वो रिस्ट्रिक्शंस थे. अगर वो रिस्ट्रिक्शंस आप मैच करो, वो दोनों में से कोई भी एक क्राइटेरिया में आप फॉल हो तो ही आपको एलयूटी अलाउ करेंगे, नहीं तो एलयूटी अलाउ ही नहीं करेंगे. देन एवरी अदर पर्सन वाज सपोज्ड टू फॉलो द बॉन्ड रिक्वायरमेंट. But bond comes up with the surety and security perspective, so technically that bond is difficult. As compared to that, LUT was much easier option because it's purely an undertaking without any surety, security or without any liability. It is purely a self-undertaking that whatever goods I'll remove from factory will be exported within limited time period. So LUT was much easier option but was granted only to few people. As compared to that, bond was available with everyone. Now the revised provision extends the applicability of LUT. So they have simplified it. Now they are very clearly saying that LUT option is available to every person, whether you are a status holder or not, whether you have done, 1 crore rupees foreign exchange has been generated or not. Forget all this nonsense criteria. All of them have been removed. And the revised provision very clearly says that the option of LUT is available to every person. Only one restriction, and that is with regard to prosecution liability. See, it has been very clearly says, under this act, if you have been prosecuted for an amount exceeding 250 lakhs, that is 2.5 crore, for any tax evasion, then yes, in that case, you will not be allowed to execute an LUT, then in that case, you have to go for a bond. मैं वापस बोल रहा हूँ. Under this act, if you have been prosecuted for any tax evasion of an amount exceeding 250 lakhs, that is 2.5 crore, then in that particular case, आपको LUT वाला option नहीं मिलेगा. Baki in every other case, the LUT option is available. So technically now LUT is available to every person, every normal human being who is into the exports business. Earlier that LUT option was restrictive only to the status holders and the person who have generated more than 1 crore foreign exchange, which is at least minimum 50% of the exports done in previous year, and all those restrictions were there. All of them have been removed and the scope of LUT has been extended in case of every exporter. As I said, the only relevant condition is tax evasion prosecution for an amount exceeding 2.5 crore or 250 lakhs, whatever you use. So that is what we say, the conditions and safeguards prescribed for furnishing LUT in place of bond for the purpose of export without payment of IGST. So what are the conditions or what are the safeguards? Then this is the only condition or safeguard that is relevant in today's case. So I think everybody understands the point number 11 for that purpose. Let us move ahead with this. There are few more points that we need to cover up. There are certain clarifications which has been issued with regard to bond or an LUT. So basically, when I talk about LUT, then you have to submit an LUT for the whole financial year. As compared to that, bond is on transaction to transaction basis. Yes, they do in some cases permit a running bond account also, but for that you have to take an approval of at least assistant or deputy commissioner of the GST. Baki in every case, a separate bond is required for every transaction. While in case of LUT, it is simple undertaking for the whole of the financial year. A bond is required to be supported by some sort of bank guarantee, जहाँ पे bank guarantee का amount कुछ 15% तक restricted है of the tax amount. So for example, अगर मैं ये बोलूँ कि मैं 1 करोड़ रुपए के goods export कर रहा हूँ, उसके ऊपर 18% के हिसाब से 18 लाख रुपए का टैक्स है, तो 18 लाख रुपए का 15% तक मुझे बैंक गारंटी फर्निश करना पड़ेगा टू एग्जीक्यूट द बॉन्ड. जबकि LUT इज सिंपल अंडरटेकिंग, एंड सिंस इट्स अ सिंपल अंडरटेकिंग, तो उसमें आपको कोई बैंक गारंटी फर्निश करने की जरूरत नहीं है. आप खुद अपने एक फॉर्म है, उसके अंदर बेसिक डिटेल्स भर के दे दो कि भाई आई हियर बाय गिव एन अंडरटेकिंग दैट गुड्स व्हाटएवर गुड्स विल बी रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम माय फैक्ट्री फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट विल बी एक्सपोर्टेड विद इन द स्टिपुलेटेड टाइमलाइन. बस दैट इज फेयर इनफ, वो चलेगा आपके केस में. अच्छा, सेम वे चाहे बॉन्ड हो के LUT हो, ऑलवेज याद रखना अगर लिमिटेड टाइम पीरियड में गुड्स एक्सपोर्ट नहीं हुए तो ये बॉन्ड या LUT दोनों विड्रॉ हो जाएंगे. बट कीप दिस इन माइंड कि फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैंने एलयूटी साइन किया है और 3 महीने के अंदर मैं गुड्स एक्सपोर्ट नहीं कर पाया तो उस केस में मेरा एलयूटी ऑटोमेटिकली विड्रॉ हो जाएगा। बट जिस दिन मैं पैसा भरूंगा, जो हमने थोड़ी देर पहले ही डिस्कस किया कि विद इन 15 डेज और द एक्सटेंडेड पीरियड, पीरियड एक्सटेंडेड बाय कमिश्नर, अगर उतने दिन में आप पैसा भर देते हो विथ इंटरेस्ट, तो जो भी आपको पीरियड ग्रांट हुआ है, जो हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे, जो भी आपका एलयूटी विड्रॉ हुआ है वो अपने आप ही वापस एक्टिवेट हो जाएगा एंड यू कैन नाउ अगेन रिमूव गुड्स विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स अंडर एलयूटी। सो ये टाइप के प्रोविजंस है, क्लैरिफिकेशंस है, much not relevant for the exams perspective also, but few points like validity of LUT, as I said, it is valid for whole financial year. But as I have also discussed, यहाँ पे लिखा ही है कि अगर ड्यूरिंग द ईयर कभी भी आपका गुड जो विद इन लिमिटेड टाइम जो एक्सपोर्ट के लिए बाहर निकाला है, अगर वो लिमिटेड टाइम पीरियड के अंदर एक्सपोर्ट नहीं होगा तो आपका एलयूटी विड्रॉ हो जाएगा, और जिस दिन वो पैसा भर दोगे विद इंटरेस्ट तो ये वापस एक्टिवेट हो जाएगा। तो वही सारी चीजें यहाँ पे मेंशन्ड है। फिर डॉक्यूमेंट्स दैट आर रिक्वायर्ड टू बी सबमिटेड विद एलयूटी, तो टेक्निकली नथिंग, because you are giving an undertaking at the beginning of the year, so you don't have to submit any other document. Then it talks about acceptance, so deemed acceptance. The moment you submit it online, because LUT has to be submitted online, the moment you submit it online, an acknowledgement will be generated, and an acknowledgement itself is called as an acceptance. Then we say bank guarantee. Bond requires bank guarantee, as I have already communicated. LUT में कोई bank guarantee furnish करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Then there is clarifications with regard to running bond account, which I was saying कि generally हर export transaction के लिए आपको अलग bond sign करना पड़ता है, but अगर आप special approval मांगोगे तो आपको running bond account maintain करने का permission मिल जाएगा, that is permissible. Then sealing by officers, which is relevant. जब भी goods export के लिए बाहर निकलेंगे तो containers में उसे seal किया जाएगा, and obviously that is where the sealing becomes relevant. But ये provisions LUT के केस में भी same रहेगा और bond के केस में भी same रहेगा. Then there is with regard to CT1. Now CT1 was actually applicable with regard to merchant export under excise law, but since the excise law has been removed, तो ये CT1 का provision आज applicable होता ही नहीं है. More important, there is a point which is with regard to transactions with EOU. But since transactions with EOU do not fall under exports or do not fall under zero rated supply category, तो bond LUT irrelevant हो जाता है उसके केस में कि जब भी आप EOU से ट्रांजेक्शन करो तो bond या LUT का कोई मतलब नहीं रहेगा. It is completely irrelevant. Then it says realization of exports proceeds in Indian rupees. So technically, there are few circumstances in which RBI may permit even if the foreign exchange gets realized in the domestic currency, that is Indian currency. बाकी हर केस में जो exports proceeds है उसका realization foreign currency में ही होना चाहिए, except SEZ transactions. कि SEZ में तो चलो लोकल करेंसी में पेमेंट आएगा, विच इज अंडरस्टैंडेबल. बट अदर देन दैट, जब भी हम फॉरेन मार्केट्स में ट्रांजेक्शन्स करें, एक्सपोर्ट्स करें, तो उसका जो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज उसका जो रियलाइजेशन होना चाहिए वो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज में ही होना चाहिए. Other than, as I said, SEZ transactions, and in some cases, as I said, कि अगर गवर्नमेंट परमिट करे, RBI परमिट करे, जैसे कि नेपाल और भूटान में अगर आप ट्रांजेक्शन करो तो उसमें RBI परमिट कर रहा है, तो नेपाल भूटान के ट्रांजेक्शन में इंडियन करेंसी में पेमेंट आएगा, SEZ के ट्रांजेक्शन में इंडियन करेंसी में पेमेंट आएगा. इसके अलावा और कोई भी जीरो रेटेड ट्रांजेक्शन होगा तो उसमें फॉरेन करेंसी में ही पेमेंट आना चाहिए, whenever goods have been removed under LUT or bond. So that is one of the point. One more is with regard to jurisdictional officer. So since you are making in kind of an SEZ transaction or export transaction, so you will be assessed by GST officers as well as you will be assessed by the custom officers. And why you will be assessed by custom officers? तो logical reason है कि goods export हुए कि नहीं हुए, उसका verification और उसका answer obviously custom officers ही देने वाले हैं. GST officers पोर्ट पे वेरीफाई नहीं करेंगे कि गुड्स फिजिकली एक्सपोर्ट हुए या नहीं हुए. हाँ, GST ऑफिसर्स रिफंड की प्रोसीजर्स या रिफंड की एप्लीकेशन को कंसिडर करके आपको रिफंड ग्रांट कर सकते हैं, बट टेक्निकली पोर्ट से एक्सपोर्ट हुआ कि नहीं उसका ड्यू वेरिफिकेशन कस्टम ऑफिसर्स ही करेंगे. सो आई थिंक ये सारे प्रोविजंस है जो हम लोग ने ऑलरेडी रिफर कर लिए हैं, विच इज विथ रिगार्ड टू रिफंड क्राइटेरिया. Now there is one more point again in relation to refund, and that is consumer welfare fund issues. When I say consumer welfare fund, so basically consumer welfare fund में कब पैसा ट्रांसफर होना चाहिए और कंज्यूमर वेलफेयर फंड में जो भी पैसा ट्रांसफर होगा उसका यूटिलाइजेशन कहाँ पे होगा. सो यही सारे रिस्ट्रिक्शंस है जो यहाँ पे कंज्यूमर वेलफेयर फंड के रिगार्डिंग दिए हुए हैं, एंड ऑल ऑफ देम आर गिवन अंडर रूल 97. So let us talk about Rule 97, which is talking about the refund amount being transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund. One of the first point that talks about is the amount which shall be transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund. So technically any amount that is a refund amount which gets decided under section 54 of the GST Act, CGST Act, obviously if will remain unclaimed, then that amount will be transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund, and that will include the tax amount as well as the compensation cess amount. And more important, that if any income is earned on that amount, then again such amount will also be transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund. More important, when I say entire amount which has been transferred to Consumer Welfare Fund, the central government is required to maintain its books, and such fund accounts shall be audited by the C&AG, Comptroller and Auditor General. Now, what is more important in this particular provision is where these funds shall get utilized. So the point says the following applicants can apply for a grant from Consumer Welfare Fund. So who are those authorities? One of the first authority is the central government or state government itself. The second authority is various regulatory authorities or autonomous bodies which are under the government itself, so under central government or state government, like maybe Consumer Protection Council is one of the regulatory body which is under central government and which works for the consumer welfare. Similar way, the third point says, as any agency or an organization which is involved in consumer welfare since last 3 years, so maybe NGO kind of thing, which has been involved continuously in consumer welfare, and basically it has been involved since last 3 years. Moving ahead with that, the fourth point talks about some village or mandal or some sort of samiti or some samiti level cooperatives which work for the consumer benefit, and especially if they are in woman consumer benefits or scheduled caste consumer benefits or scheduled tribe consumer benefits, then obviously they'll be given a priority kind of thing. More important, any educational institute which has been approved under UGC, and as a part of its curriculum, it is providing some sort of consumer awareness or consumer studies kind of thing as part of their curriculum for more than 3 years period, then yes, to such educational institute this amount also will get transferred, because ultimately that educational institute is keeping consumer studies as part of its curriculum. So ultimately this amount will somewhere benefit to the consumer welfare activities. And the last one is any complainant. So for example, if I feel that some company has done a cheating with me, so against them I file a complaint in Consumer Protection Council, and ultimately entire matter gets heard, and ultimately a tribunal passes a verdict in my favor. So obviously I'll get all the compensation and everything, but the more important is what about the expenses that I've incurred in that legal battle. So that is where as a complainant I can apply for the refund of the expenses which I can apply not for refund, but I can apply to the Consumer Welfare Fund that out of this amount please help me as a consumer, because ultimately this should be benefited to the consumer welfare, and I'm one of the consumer and it is for my welfare. So grant me entire legal expenses. So reimbursement of legal expenses is what we say. So these are the places where the funds of Consumer Welfare Fund will be utilized. And keep this in mind that this will always be audited by C&AG. And obviously it is logical to get it audited by C&AG to avoid any fraud out of the Consumer Welfare Fund. So I think everybody understands the amendments which has been brought under Rule 97, which is in relation to Consumer Welfare Fund. Let us move ahead. There is Rule 97A, which talks about the manual filing of the refund application and all other documents. So a special clause has been brought. Actually Rule 97A was everywhere talking about online, electronic filing of refund application, electronic filing of documents and all those things. But manual filing of the same has also been allowed, and for that Rule 97A has been amended. So if a notice is served and you can give even a reply in manual format in writing, that's okay, that is acceptable. So manual filing has been allowed. Basically that's the change which has been brought by Rule 97A. And one of the last point that has been brought as a clarification under refund chapter is with regard to fabric industry. Now technically अर्लियर जब मेन सेक्शन 54 रिफंड के लिए बना था तो उसमें जो अनयूटिलाइज आईटीसी का रिफंड था उसके लिए दो ही प्रोविजंस थे. Either it was covering zero rated supplies and it was covering inverted tax structure. I'm talking about original section 54. In fact, section 54 subsection 3, which was talking about refund of unutilized ITC, and it was talking about only two provisions. One, as I said, it's a zero rated supplies. Another is inverted tax structure. Now, a certain restrictions has been brought with regard to refund under rule 54, section 54.3. What are those restrictions? So they've kept they've kept few industries out of it or few products out of it. So a negative list kind of thing was given that this many products are not eligible for any sort of refund under section 54 subsection 3. Now when I say some certain people are not eligible for refund or certain goods, industries are not eligible for refund under section 54 subsection 3, so technically what you need to understand is one of those industry was fabric industry. Now actually because of this particular point fabric के cases में unutilized ITC का refund मिलना बंद हो गया and that was in relation to entire section 54 subsection 3, and section 54 subsection 3 talks about refund in both the cases, zero rated and inverted tax structure. Now the clarification says, or the clarified part says, that in case of zero rated supply in fabric product only, I'm saying. So if you say that you are exporting fabrics or you are supplying them to SEZ, that is what we call as zero rated. So in case of zero rated supplies of fabric, if your ITC remains unutilized, you are eligible for refund. The restriction will be limited only to the excess to the extent of inverted tax structure. It will not be applicable in case of zero rated supplies. मैं एक बार पूरा प्रोविजन वापस बोल रहा हूं. आई थिंक इट मे बिकम कंफ्यूजिंग फॉर यू, सो टू गेट अ बेटर क्लैरिटी आई एम अगेन सेइंग दिस प्रोविजन. सी section 54 subsection 3 was talking about refund in two cases. The first case was zero rated supply and the second case was inverted tax structure. Now ये unutilized ITC के refund के लिए एक negative list था कि for this many products a refund will never be granted. What were those products? So there were a lot of products. One of the product was fabric. So in case of fabric, ना zero rated supply के case में आप refund के लिए eligible हो, even if your ITC remains unutilized. ना आप inverted tax structure के case में refund के लिए eligible हो, even if your ITC remains unutilized. So ना zero rated supply में fabric sector को refund मिलता था, ना ही inverted tax structure में मिलता था. Now the clarified part says that in case of zero rated supply, if your ITC remains unutilized, then even in case of fabric industry, you are eligible for refund. But the second component which I am talking about is inverted tax structure. In that case, if your ITC remains unutilized, I am sorry, you are still not eligible for refund in case of fabric, I am saying. So, जो restriction था कि refund grant नहीं होना चाहिए was earlier applicable in case of both in the sense, number one is the first one is with regard to zero rated supply and second was with regard to inverted tax structure. Both दोनों के केस में फैब्रिक प्रोडक्ट हो तो रिफंड नहीं मिलता था. नाउ ओनली इन केस ऑफ इन्वर्टेड टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर फैब्रिक प्रोडक्ट हो तो रिफंड नहीं मिलता है. इन केस ऑफ जीरो रेटेड सप्लाई फैब्रिक प्रोडक्ट हो तो रिफंड आपको 100% मिलने ही वाला है. So I think that is one of the point that we were supposed to cover up, and that is 15 number point, the clarification. Moving ahead with that, friends. So I mean, like, these are the points or these are the changes which has been brought with regard to refund chapter. Now let us talk about few more chapters which are still pending. One is job work, another is accounts and records, that is one of the main chapter is e-way bill. So let us talk about all of them.